Mike Bledsoe, welcome to the show. How are you, man?
Dude, I'm great. I'm great. Loving life over here.
Good.
A lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice, man. Well, I'm excited for those listening. I have listened to Mike's voice for a lot of hours from the Barbell Shrugged podcast, like well over 10 years ago. Or when did you guys start it? Like 2012?
2012, I started recording shows the second half of 2011, but I didn't it was a lot of just trying things out. I was posting things, but when we came with the name Barbell Shrugged, and I solidified my co-hosts, and we like had the official launch. It was I believe it was late January, early February 2012, and we launched on YouTube and podcast. And yeah, it was a blast, man. I ran that show for 6 years.
Yeah, dude. It was that was a great show. I was like, so for me, I was halfway through college when I probably started listening. So probably around like 2014, 2015. And I was like, I remember sitting at my internship in finance, like just listening to you guys and just obsessing over anything and everything health and fitness. But it's also really cool full circle because back then I was listening to that to like get jacked because I thought it would make me happy. And then like fast forward 10 years later, you and I have done some work together and it's just nothing like, I mean, not body composition focused whatsoever, but more so just like personal development and coaching and lots of different things. I know you've been playing with AI quite a bit. Yeah. What I mean, what do you what the hell is what's about to happen?
Nobody knows what's about to happen. I've been to give everybody a little bit of context is uh, um, I have designed my life in a way that I've been able to go really deep into some areas, in multiple areas. I've gone really deep. Health and fitness, and in the health category, psycho emotional health, studied psychology, studied somatic therapy, studied with a lot of like spiritual. I don't call them teachers. They're not gurus, but they're people that help bring that in. Anyone would ever have heard of. Gone to the jungle, sat with ayahuasca several times. And I've also been a lover of technology since I was in my teens, and have always been involved in technology to some degree. So these are the categories in which I have some knowledge. And I've got 19 years of entrepreneurship on top of that. So understanding marketing and business and all that. Um, with AI, when ChatGPT launched in, a little over 3 years ago, I was probably one of the first, 100,000 users. It was like, oh, it's up, I'm in. And I, it took me a while to realize like what a power user I was. And I've gotten to the point now where like every single task I do, outside of podcasting, is I'm actually inside of an AI platform conducting any business that I'm doing. And so, and I follow a lot of the experts, and everybody agrees that we have no idea where this is going to go. Like, if you want to understand where AI is going and where the world is going, just read science fiction novels, because that is where people are coming up with their ideas, right? Like technology is getting to the place where we're only limited by the level of creativity that we can verbalize or to type. So if I can put my creative thoughts into words, then I can really create it. And right now we're at the digital layer. So anything that can be done on a computer can pretty much be done by anybody. Anybody can build software right now. Anybody can solve any computer-based problem. So anyone who works on, if their job involves a computer, then that's taking over. And then we have, we're calling it like physical AIs, what we're actually calling robots now. And so the thing that's been holding robots back isn't the mechanical, if you look at like Boston Dynamics and all this, we have all these robots that are doing pretty cool stuff. And it's been interesting to watch the last, 15 years of a video pops up of these guys at Boston Dynamics making these robots. But what's been missing is the AI intelligence layer that allows the robots to operate. And so we're about 3 years out from me walking down the street. I live in Austin, Texas, walking down the street. And this will be the first city this happens. It'll be Austin and San Francisco, where I'm walking down the street and there's just going to be a robot walking down the street carrying, some groceries for somebody, or, who knows what it's going to be. But we're going to hit a major. This is what people don't understand. You can look at the economy right now, and things may seem like they're bad. You look at the stock market, things that used to be really valuable aren't valuable anymore. People are afraid that their jobs aren't safe anymore. I find it hilarious that people think they can actually resist AI coming in. The people that are basically trying to stop data centers from being installed in a geographical region, I think is a bit naive. I think that the fears around water and electricity and stuff like that being used for data centers and that being harmful to the ecosystem is a bit short-sighted. And we can go into all that, but what we're witnessing is a total transformation of the economy. So the way the economy worked up until this point, like modern economics is about 300 years old, and we're about to we're crossing a threshold in this very moment. We're inside this thing called the singularity. And as we cross over, nobody can predict, even the people the smartest AI engineers, the smartest tech investors, the smartest politicians, nobody knows where this is going to go, because every disruption in technology, every advancement in technology has downstream effects that nobody can imagine. And so, people ask the question of what job is safe, and it's like, well, what the thing is, people start thinking about what can't AI do, what can't a robot do that only a human can do. But you also have to be able to sell those services to people who may not have jobs that were replaced by AI. And so there's all these. What we're witnessing is a total economic shift. Like the entire politics is going to change. Government's changing. The coaching industry is changing. Like whatever you're in, if you think that what you're going to do isn't going to change in the future, then that's just having your blinders on, and everything is going to shift and it's going to be unrecognizable. And the thing that people need to remember is we are moving into such massive abundance. We're about to have an abundance of energy. Energy is going to become almost free in the next decade. We're going to have an abundance of labor. We're going to both physical labor, technical labor, even creative labor. All of these things we're going to have such an abundance of it that it's going to drive the price of everything down. And so the food is going to get cheaper. Real estate's going to get cheaper. So for instance, the fact that we have flying cars now, right? There are two companies that have been cleared by the FAA where it's basically Uber is in partnership, where I can hop on my phone, have this drone basically drop in my driveway. I can hop in and it's going to take me somewhere. That's we're going to have that in Austin in the next 2 years. San Francisco probably have that a little bit sooner. So where you may not need to live in the city anymore to get access to what you want to have access to. So it's going to change the real estate game.
Yeah.
So basically everything's going to get cheaper across the board, and people. So that it's so unpredictable. And I think that one of the things I want to talk about today is everyone's identity is so wrapped up in their job. Like, this is who I am, that we have to be ready to let that go, or else there's going to be massive suffering.
Yes. Okay.
Did I give you enough?
Oh
Yeah.
my God. I have like my whiteboard's already full. Because I think like at some point I want to talk about like how this can be such a great thing for our own, conscious evolution
Hmm.
individually. But like first and foremost, I think as you're talking about all that, the most like when you say the singularity, like the term that's coming to mind or the idea that's coming to mind for me is just how much of our economy and just this world is going to be eliminated when there's no middleman anymore. Like when information, like there is no gatekeeping of information in any direction anywhere. Like, because I don't know, I think about like economics wise, how many bright minds and creative and smart individuals are working in like foreign exchange trading and just trading the US dollar versus other currencies all day. And it's like that's no value add to society. It's just a mismatch in information. And that's what you see in stock markets and everything. So it's like
Yeah.
it's just like there's so much energy and effort and things that are eliminated as soon as information is no longer gatekept at all.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I want to mention too, is, 'cause you mentioned like trading currencies, is that the there's certain industries where we're going to see money leave, but we're going to see money flow into other industries.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
it if you watch the news, it may feel like there's a recession or there's a collapse of the economy or something like that. It's like no, there's actually more capital than ever, and the volume of trading is still happening. A lot of people are hanging on to it and figuring out where to deploy that capital. But it's going to the capital is moving. It's not. This is not a. If you're experiencing like if people are watching any type of thing and feel like there's a recession or a depression or something like that, this is a totally different thing than we've ever experienced before. So I just wanted to mention that because you mentioned the trading. But sorry, what were you saying again? I want to make sure we answer it.
Well, just yeah, I mean the close like how much of our systems and society has been gatekeeping information or at least slowing down information.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing is yeah, there's a human element. So one is IP, intellectual
Hmm.
property,
Hmm.
which is building a moat around something.
Yeah.
So we can talk about that, and then there's the person-to-person interaction. And so uh, when if I'm doing business with somebody and I'm having to wait on them to email me back, I'm having to get on a phone call. We have a meeting scheduled for next Tuesday, and if you look at your meetings you're having in business, it's everything is really slow. And then on top of that, there's personalities. All of a sudden, Brooks and I are doing some type of deal. I said something that didn't quite land for him. Now he's got some type of feeling about it. Now he's going to resist getting back to me, unconsciously. Unconsciously, we're doing these things where, like, we're not even aware that it's like, oh, that guy, like, I don't know, there's something I don't like about that guy or whatever. And that impacts the flow of information and deals getting done, or just like really simple things. People that work inside of companies. I mean, how much drama happens inside of a company? I've never met anybody that works at a company that doesn't have some type of issue with their boss or coworkers. Like everyone's complaining about something at all times. All that goes away. All this person to person interaction that is occurring goes away because now it's agent to agent. And these agents, they're not they're not having conversations where they're getting feelings about someone else. So we could just imagine that we remove the human element of this unconscious patterns that are dictating poor behavior, and now everything speeds up 1,000x. And so there's like a lot of beauty in that, and the beauty in like just we want something to happen, and now it's going to happen. Uh, and so now that like frees, it's like, well, where do we spend our time when we're going to have an abundance of time? There's going to be an abundance of energy, and I think that humans aren't really, I don't think in human history we've never really had this problem of an abundance of everything.
Okay, real quick, the agent thing.
Mhm.
Just to give like a, because I'm sure I can't even fathom where the extent that it's going to be, but for someone listening that isn't super familiar, I mean, I know you've been kind of playing around with Claudebot, or maybe mentioned you had. I set it up, and basically what this looks like already, this is already available, is just on my phone, I have a Telegram chat, or it could be an iMessage chat, or it could be a WhatsApp chat. And you have your agent, and your agent can plug into anything. It can plug into your DoorDash. It can plug into your Aura Ring data. It can plug into your Facebook, your Instagram, your Gmail, your Google Drive. And instead of going to all these different apps, you can be having one conversation with one agent that is just, I mean, your personal assistant. But I didn't even think about the agent to agent piece and not having this extra human element of deals and conversation and all of that.
Yeah. People are used to ChatGPT mostly. It's an LLM, large language model, and you go in, and the quality of the information you get back from ChatGPT is the quality of prompt that you put in, right? An agent actually goes and takes action on your behalf. And so the quality of the action they take is based off the quality of the prompt that you give it or the direction that you give it. Most people, in order to be effective at using agents, you have to start thinking like an engineer. And so, uh, there you can read books on that. You can just start playing with agents and then see how much money you spend on building things that don't actually work to realize that you have to start thinking like an engineer when you're building things. An architect, you have to really think about, I now spend 10 times more time planning than I am executing. When it used to be, I plan and then I spend months executing. Now it's I plan and I spend a week. I spend 3 days planning, and then what gets executed happens in like a matter of days. And so it's much more of like probably like a 1-to-1 ratio right now. And that's probably because I'm being a little bit conservative on my spend on AI, but it could happen a lot faster. So the agents are they're going and doing things on your behalf. And so one of the things you're talking about is not only can an agent right now, as it stands, because robotics aren't in full production yet. It's not even a matter of ability at this point. It's just a matter of Elon Musk hasn't built enough robots for all of us to have one yet. And so, and many companies are ramping up that right now. And so, this the agents are just you basically have one of the top engineers and coders and someone who understands all technology. You have like a top 1% tech engineer in your pocket, and you tell it what to do and it's going to go do it. So there's a lot of things that I previously didn't care to get into months of technical build that I now am like, yeah, I'll build that. That sounds like a fun project to work on. When previously, like capital, having enough money to pay someone to do it and time were limitations, but time and capital are no longer limitations. So, yeah, I mean that's what's happening with agents right now. I mean the agent, I need to start marking the date, but basically OpenClaw came out a couple months ago, and that pushed every platform to start launching as close to their own version of that in a very short period of time. And so an agent takes action on your behalf, but things like Claude Cowork, OpenClaw, some of these things are harnesses that kind of allow you to communicate with the agents effectively. And so we're about 2 months in to the agentic world. So LLMs, ChatGPT was like V1 it was like the first generation. And if we look at like, usually when we go, the first generation of entrepreneurs were this, and this, and there was like 50 to 100 years in between each generation. And then it was like, in the internet world, because I got into the game of internet, like digital marketing, digital business in 2012. I was the second generation. The first generation came in the early 2000s. I was the second generation. And then social media hit, and that was like, I was kind of bordering the second and third, and the third generation was social media, which is what we're all participating in to some degree. I mean, we're podcasting. That's what this is.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're entering in a new, and then it was LLMs, and now we had access to infinite intelligence. And now we're having access, just 3 years later, have access to infinite agency. And so, and then when the robots come online in force, then we're going to be in the next generation. We'll be in the third generation of AI where things are being done for us in the physical world. And that is kind of like, I knew agents were coming. Like as soon as I saw AI, I was like, oh shit, I see where this is going. We're going to have agents. They're saying that the agentic abilities are probably like 5 to 8 years away. And then it happened 3 years, and so everything's happening incredibly fast, and AI is learning from AI, and it's teaching, and it's becoming more recursive in nature, which just means like every time it builds something, it can like improve on itself. There's still a human element in helping guide it, so it doesn't just, disintegrate into entropy. But it's I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm getting a little too technical for the podcast. So
Well,
pull it out.
Well, so actually, that last piece, I'm curious your thoughts there because coming from, a nutrition background, like there's a lot of misinformation in nutrition. Like there's a lot of straight bullshit.
Well, I think there's a lack of information in nutrition or all sciences.
So, right. So like my question was going to be, because I just think of butterfly effect, right? Like I've seen AI give a response that's like perusing Reddit and then gathering something and saying something that's like, well, I know, and I've seen that claim out there, and it's been repeated so many times, and I feel like it's just going to escalate. Like, do you see it ultimately getting to truth versus like how do you like I could just see the waves of something that's completely false getting escalated since they're all training on each other's data at this point.
Yeah, so man, there's been so many over the last few years, there's been so many concerns about that. So one is that one of the concerns was like the majority of content on the internet right now is AI generated. It's not even human generated. And so if AI is just training off of AI generated content, then, then that could guide us into like just a bunch of BS. Basically, there was one theory, which was basically like getting on the internet is going to be nonsense in the future because it's going to be, it's just going to be flooded with AI generated content that's BS. And so, but I think that what we're witnessing right now is there is this, I might have like a few different platforms open at the same time and I have them checking each other. But I think Grok is a really good example of this, where now if you're using the latest Grok model, which is the 420, the 4.20, Elon's got a sense of humor. I love it. But it's basically deploying 4 agents to go do searches, and they argue with each other. And so they give you your solution, right? And so Elon has his goal with XAI and Grok is to get to the truth. And so, which is kind of like antithetical to ChatGPT, to OpenAI. OpenAI is more of like, let's make people feel good. Let's keep them on the platform. Let's create some harmony in some way. So there's if we go back, I think it was it Plato or Socrates? You know, you have the true, the beautiful, and the good, are like the three values. And so everyone tends to gravitate towards like, are you a truth person? Are you a good person? Are you like a beauty person? Like, as far as like which one of those values do you like gravitate towards the most? Like I tend to be like a truth person, and sometimes like the truth can be belligerent. The truth can be uncomfortable. It doesn't necessarily create harmony because people have a resistance to the truth. And so, so I think that like some of the platforms have the values of the people who are running them, right? And so, like, you know what? Even if it's not true, like we saw this a lot with COVID, right? Is like, well, you know, it might be better if, you know, like an example of this would be like, we should just tell people to wear masks all the time to ensure that they're wearing masks when they're indoors within 6 feet of each other, right? And so the good thing in people's minds, and I am not sharing my opinion on COVID or politics or anything right now, but what ended up happening was like I remember like seeing people wearing masks outside, and I'm thinking, well, like logically, instead of rebreathing all the bacteria that's coming out of your body and going into the mask and you're breathing it in, and if you really want a mask to be effective, you should probably be throwing it away every couple hours and putting on a brand new one. And there's all these things that just aren't being followed, but they're telling people to wear masks even outdoors if you're around people and this and that. And I'm like, it just doesn't really make sense. Like getting fresh air is like one of the best things you can do if you have any illness in human history ever.
Yeah.
Getting some sun and getting some fresh air is like one of the best things you could do. And yet we saw people wearing masks in their cars by themselves and so on and so forth. But it was like, yeah, but we need to do that so that people wear them when they're around other people indoors. And so that was like an example of where we're valuing good, or our perception of like, this is a good thing to do versus what's true. Yeah. And what's true is most of it was like, you know, yes, a mask is beneficial in certain scenarios for certain people and all this, right. But for the most part, like if we came out and told the truth, then, I mean, that was like some of the arguments from people, politicians and other things. Like, well, if we told people the truth, then, you know, it would do more harm than good. Right. And so you have Elon who values truth over good or beauty or whatever it is. And so his platform is going to be like a truth-seeking platform, whereas some of these other platforms like Anthropic, Claude might be more like a good platform. Like we're trying to create more good in the world. We're resisting some things that, you know, maybe we don't want the government to use our product to fire missiles or to surveil domestically and, you know, all these things. And so, but I think that in the end, it will be truth seeking, because I think that people are, the people that are building things tend to be very like truth seeking in general. And so some people may just want to have the truth be revealed at a slower pace than others.
Yeah.
So that like, was it apocalypse? If you break down the etymology of apocalypse, it just means the unveiling. And it's like, oh, if something's apocalyptic, people are like, oh, it's bad. It's like, well, no, it's just jarring. Because when you have the veil lifted from your eyes and you see the actual truth, it can be an emotionally jarring experience. And so I think that's also something people need to get comfortable with. But I think we're moving towards truth.
Cool.
On things.
Yeah.
That was a long way of putting it, but
no, it was necessary though. I mean, that's helpful to understand. And like, yeah, I think the sacrifice of truth in the last 5 to 10 years as a means to an end of good has caused or led to, people up more people moving towards truth is first before
Yeah,
anything else.
they're questioning. They don't trust the institutions anymore.
Yeah.
And when something becomes institutionalized, it basically takes wisdom in the present moment and it freezes it in time. And so I don't, there was a time where I would get angry about the institutions. And now I just realize, okay, they took the wisdom at the time and they froze it, and they're trying to create some stability that makes people feel good. But it's not necessarily like when something becomes institutionalized, I instantly start questioning it, and it should be questioned.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a loss of trust there, and so I think that there's a lot of people who would rather get their information from like Joe Rogan than say Anthony Fauci at this point.
Yeah.
And there's all right, am I going to get my information from a comedian or somebody who's been in government for 30, 40 years and been getting a crazy amount of kickbacks? It's like, I mean, that's like the choice people are like dealing with at this point. And I'm not saying one way is right over the other, but that's how people are perceiving it.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's go. All right. I want to go two different directions. I want to talk about like just in general, like what naturally comes up is, shit's about to, you mentioned identity, like your identity being tied up in your job or your identity being tied up in being useful in certain way in general. And then at some point too, just like, what are we going to be doing with our time and this energy that's freed up, and like the parts that the journey back to whatever that looks like. So let's start with this whole thing getting shaken up and the fear and the ability to not lose ourselves as all this change comes up. I mean, how are you thinking about like us humans and preparing for that?
Well, I think if you already know yourself, it's not a problem. So if you're lost, it's a problem. And so you're saying, how do we not lose ourselves? It's like, if you already know who you are, then this is not a problem at all. And so what you're really speaking to is if you're lost, how what's going to be the impact of that? And what I mean by being lost is if you over-identify with your job title, you're lost. If that's who you think you are, you're already lost. Now, the implications of being lost right now is, there's a level of comfort that gives.
Mm-hmm.
But when that gets stripped away and you're lost, now you're actually gonna feel lost. Like the illusion, the apocalypse happens, the unveiling of the truth occurs, and the truth that people are gonna end up facing is, they're going to be faced with the question of who am I without this identity, this illusion that I've bought into, that I'm a this or I'm a that, and I don't have that anymore. And I think that a lot of people, I think you've been through this, and I've been through this as well, which is going through bouts of depression at some point. And so when someone starts getting into a really depressive state, it's usually because they've been shown the truth in some capacity, and they don't want to know the truth. Their ego system, their entire system of who they think they are is resisting this reality. And now I don't like how I feel, and so I'm going to depress my feelings, and then you end up feeling very flat. You don't feel very motivated. You don't get like really sad. You don't get really joyful. You're in a depressed state. And so I think a lot of times people think about depression as just sadness, but it's really just being flat.
Yeah, numb.
Yeah, if you really let the sadness in, it'll pass.
Yeah.
Like no one just stays sad. Now you can stay depressed, and then that that doesn't feel very, well, you're not feeling much at all, and so life just starts looking gray. And so I think that what we're likely going to experience is a lot of people going into states of depression. And the mistake would be to start medicating ourselves to enhance the depression. So most of the psychoactive pharmaceutical drugs that are on the market are really there to help numb you so that you can continue to do your job, so that you don't blow up at your kids, so that you can basically continue to live life exactly the way you're living it without having to deal with the emotions that are coming up around it. That's what's primarily happening. That's how most Americans deal with their depression, is they go see a therapist. The therapist is then pressured by the medical system to also work alongside a psychiatrist. Psychotherapists don't prescribe drugs. They're there to conduct, usually talk therapy or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then especially if you're going into like corporate medicine environment, then the therapists are highly pressured. And I know this because my wife was a psychotherapist in the medical system. And so I've got inside scoop on exactly how this works. And then you go to the psychiatrist and they see you for 5 minutes and they start asking you questions, or they take the notes from the therapist. And next thing you know, you got a script. And then you walk downstairs and you get the script filled and you pop this pill every day and you take your Xanax and, you don't feel very much. And at first it feels a lot better because it's not, what you were feeling and you want to get away from that. But over time, you're like, fuck, man, I haven't felt anything in a while. And so I think we're going to run into a lot of people in depressive states. And I think that they can either have the choice of getting real with themselves and stepping into having, I think when someone goes into depression, that's the first stage of a spiritual awakening for most people. I'm not going to speak in absolutes. For most people, it's the beginning of a spiritual awakening. Most people suppress that spiritual awakening with drugs, television, porn, whatever it is, whatever your addiction is. Everyone has something that they're addicted to. Social media, fitness is also one. And so you can either avoid it or you can hit it head on and have your spiritual awakening and come to understand who you really are. And then your ability to operate in the world, it may take some time. It may take years to kind of get on the other side of the spiritual awakening. But after that, then, where I try to be with identity is, okay, I try not to stay too attached to any single identity, and I become very fluid in how I show up in the world and what's being asked of me in this moment and how am I showing up? Am I running a business? Am I podcasting? Am I being a husband? Can I shift and really be present in every single moment so I can be present with what's happening with other people, what's happening within myself. And when I'm in that place, I'm just, everything is smooth. Everything is smooth and obvious. Like next steps are obvious. There's no confusion. And so if things feel clunky, if there's confusion, then what's happening is there's an attachment to things being the way we imagined them to be or how we thought they were, and recognizing that this is now changing and it's not meeting my expectations. And now I'm resisting the present moment and the reality of things. And so the speed at which things are changing, one of the things I think about is what's rock bottom. It's like people don't change until they hit rock bottom. Rock bottom is the world, your reality has been shifting around you for a long time, and you have been denying yourself from seeing that reality because you're attached to something being different than how it actually is. And at some point, the reality shifts so much that you can no longer trick yourself. And then you get slapped. And then that's what rock bottom is. Rock bottom is when you get slapped with reality and you realize that you've been wrong about something. And it's time to change. And so I try to make my rock bottom as high as possible. It's like I don't want to I don't want to be so out of touch with reality that it hits me really hard. If you get hit really hard, it's just because you were out of touch. That's how far out of touch you were with reality. But if I can be present in the moment with the changes that are constantly happening every millisecond, being in that present moment, then you're not going to be surprised. There is no rock bottom. You're going to be fine.
Oh, yeah, that numbing, those comments hits home for me because I at first I've had a journey with SSRIs, and I at first found it to be great because I wasn't feeling those super super low states, but then and like how we all want to live, we don't just want an absence or we don't just want the absence of low states, which ironically it comes full circle and you welcome the lows and they're fine. They end.
Yeah.
But it's like the opposite of happiness isn't being super sad or fearful or, like you said, it's just nothing and just numb and not feeling any of it. And it's funny because I texted you a couple months ago about a podcast I heard like 3 years ago. I was describing an anxiety around not working or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, what were you feeling? And I was like, well, I had this thing to do and I was going to go do this thing. And you're like, no, you're describing what happened. What were you feeling?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what are you talking about? And like, it's so funny because looking back now, like, dude, that has been a huge part of my life. Has gotten so much more enjoyable and I've gotten so much more present just tuning into my body and what I'm feeling the last year. And I'm asking people that all the time and I'm getting the same response. People are like, oh, what do you mean? And they just start explaining the problem again. They're in the story, they're in the thinking, they're in the language. And so
are you telling me the story about what happened, or are you telling me actually what was your felt somatic experience in your body?
Yes.
It's such in our culture, it's so, when someone goes, how are you feeling? And they're like, oh, everything's good. And they start telling the story about their day or their week or whatever. And it's just, and everyone just accepts it.
Yeah.
So it's not a personal problem. It's a cultural problem that impacts us personally.
Yeah. Cause that's easy to recite. And most of them for most people are the same thing. That's how it was for me. It was the same thing over and over and over. Like I had this story about who I was. So it was like, it didn't even matter what I changed externally. Like that was just running. So, yeah, man, the introduction to the feeling side or the somatic side from you has been huge. And I think I know this conversation started about AI, and I think this relates directly to it because it's like AI is kind of taking care of the thinking, execution, doing, the agents, the taking action, and who knows in the future. But like that brings me to like what are we without those identities of work and usefulness? And it just, I mean, my mind just goes to, well, connection with other people, creativity, feeling your experience fully. Like,
yeah.
But that can be so jarring. Like,
yeah, I mean, most of my friends, we're all sitting around and, we see AI as this huge gift. And like we all see a world where like what is left when the price of everything is cheap and everything's automated and you don't actually need to do anything for your survival. What do you do with that time? Do you play music? Do you visit with friends? Do you, soak up the sun? Do you smell the roses? And I think that, so many people, I think the majority of the population probably sees AI as some type of threat to humanity. And I think it's the next stage in our evolution in that we are able to externalize the thinking mind, which frees us up to be more in our bodies and be more in our feeling. And so I really just see it as like this is just a stage of development for humanity. And just like any stage, like there's some resistance there. And so I think that AI, I think they were polling, like there's like popularity polls, it's like AI is polling underneath ICE, the immigration,
Mm.
police or whatever, enforcement. And so, ICE isn't very popular if you like look at, you take the whole statistical poll of the United States, not very popular. And AI is even less popular than that, which is
Wow.
good information for me to have because I live in a city where everyone's excited about it,
Yeah.
I'd say like 10 to 20% of the cars when I drive into town they're self-driving or there's nobody in the driver's seat. And so that's my normal. I'm also hanging out with entrepreneurs who have their open claw and they're working on Claude, and everyone's like building something epic and excited. But I know that's not the majority of the population. The majority of the population are like terrified that they're about to lose their livelihood, or they're afraid that there's going to be some type of ecological disaster because of the data centers and the use of energy. And so, but I think it's really just the next stage in evolution and of our consciousness. And I don't see AI like quote unquote taking over. I see it, giving us more space and time for our human experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I feel like at first, for your circle and, people, like the ceiling is going to get infinitely higher for a great experience of life. But I feel like the floor temporarily for some people is going to get infinitely lower.
Yeah, there's just kind of like highlight some things that I think people could be tracking is there's this thing called universal basic income,
Mm-hmm.
which has been a conversation for about a decade. And when I first heard it, I was like, that's dumb. That's not going to work. It's welfare for everybody. The idea is like everyone will be given a stipend to be able to meet their needs. And then it's like, where does that money come from? And everyone's very programmed to believe that money comes from the government. Okay, the government's going to have to tax the wealthy in order to give it to the people who don't have as much. But the people that don't have as much is going to skyrocket. And so there's this whole idea of like, this is not actually going to work. But that's old paradigm thinking in that that there's scarce. That's a scarce.
It's like the pie
resources
can't get
mentality.
bigger. Yeah.
That's a scarce, resources mentality, and our resources are about to become infinite. And so when resources are infinite, including labor becomes infinite, capital becomes infinite, then it's really hard. I mean, I have a challenge wrapping my head around it, and I'm in this conversation daily. And there's a guy, Imad Mostique, I think is how you pronounce his name. He wrote The Last Economy, which published in August. And he was a hedge fund manager and also built some AI diffusion models for image and video generation. So he's like in tech and finance, and he's a pretty brilliant dude. I think he's good to listen to it. He's one perspective. I don't think he's spot on everything, but yeah, this idea of UBI, universal basic income, which is basically we're going to go through a period of time, and incredibly wealthy people are already doing this. So it's not coming from governments. They're saying, okay, if people are in this geography and they're making less than this amount of money, we're going to pump money into their accounts. It's geographically based is kind of how we see it happening right now. The ultra wealthy are already putting these funds together This is totally outside of the government. The ultra wealthy do not want to give money to the government because they mismanage it. It mostly goes to waste and fraud. And so, and they know this. I mean, if you're say a tech entrepreneur, your entire life has been making the most out of the least. And in government, there's no budget, doesn't mean anything. Like you can always just print more money. You can just, whatever. You're not actually, government's not producing anything. They're just managing things. And so what these really ultra wealthy doing are creating these funds. Also, there was something really cool happened recently where they just passed a bill where they put like $250 into accounts for, I think, kids, people under the age of 18, like where they can start trading stocks. And so there's been this injection of capital into the markets through like kids. Like, hey, we want to like give you the opportunity to participate in the economy. That's not just exchanging your labor, dollars for hours. You can actually participate, and so that's an interesting thing. And then what we're witnessing is there's some chatter about people that have a lot of like maybe like Facebook, like a Mark Zuckerberg saying, okay, a percentage of the revenue that comes into Meta is going to actually go into this fund that puts money in kids' accounts where they can like trade in the stock market and participate in the economy, which is growing. And so there's a lot of examples that are emerging right now and before the pain is really being felt. So I think what we may see, and a lot of people fear this, a lot of people who are very cynical will go, well, then Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg get to decide who gets money. And like, I'd rather have the government dictate that. And I'm like, may not really be a choice for one. But yeah, we're moving into something where like there's universal basic income, which is going to give you just enough to survive. But Elon's been talking about something called universal high income, which is when we 1000x the ability to 1000x labor, we 1000x capital, we 1000x wealth, and that is just access to goods and services. When we 1000x that, what happens then? It's like, okay, you may not have what Mark Zuckerberg has, but you have your own house, you have your own robot, you have infinite food, you have a nice saltwater pool in your backyard, like everything's pretty chill. Like what happens then? And so I think that in the short term, I think there will be some pain because people will not like universal basic income. But I think that we're going to transition to a place where everyone's going to be really well off. And so, again, how we get there, even the smartest people on the planet are kind of like, I have some ideas, but, when the rubber meets the road is when we're really going to see how this operates.
Yeah. It breaks the brain to think about ultimate infinite abundance, like you said, So the last leg here, what I would love to talk about is like, all right, so let's just trust we figure that out at some point, we all have our needs met. Because I think another conversation, which it's like very evolving, is like, how do you add value and get resources to yourself? But that's another conversation. I think what it ends up coming to is connection, community, enjoying yourself, enjoying the human experience. And as someone who, man, out of everyone I know, you probably have learned and gone down rabbit holes around, because this self-work journey, this journey to shedding old identities and just being more at home with who we are and in the moment and in the present moment, like that to me is everything. Like if we're going to have the saltwater pool and the robot and the gourmet food, like what does it come back to? It's just enjoying yourself without needing to numb yourself. How can we use well, whether it's AI or not, because I think something that's been cool for me is I used to get curious about like, what's this human design thing about? But now I can go to AI and just like be like, hey, analyze this. Like, I want to hear more about this. So, how can we have you been using AI to kind of accelerate some more inner journey, just self exploration and discovery? And how can people think about accelerating that road without needing the medical system or whatever it is to do it?
Yeah. So I think the two things we can. So where we're at with the technology right now is everybody's just using it for everything, like, and it's just being dispersed in a million different directions. I subscribe to some AI newsletters, and every single day I've got 3 newsletters sitting in my email that are talking about what new product was launched or what new upgrade was launched, and it's just insane, right? And so there are companies that are putting out health, trying to figure out the biometric data, make sense of that. I went to, and right now it's your ability to use it for health, relationships, your own personal development is going to be based on your own knowledge of these spaces and being able to use AI to accelerate it for yourself. So if you haven't really invested a lot of time, energy, money into improving your relationships or your own personal development, if you haven't been taking a retreat or two a year that's guided by somebody who's like teaching you a method for self-discovery, then these tools are going to be about as surface level as you are. It can only take you as deep as you're going to be able to go yourself, because you have to be able to prompt it in a way that from your own knowledge. And so you still have to be a bit of an expert, or you have to be partnered with some type of an expert that's going to use these tools on your behalf to help you get there. And I think that I have a friend who has he was walking me through, he's been working on it for a long time, which is the digital coach. And he has pieced something together. I'm going to text him as soon as we get off this podcast, because a couple weeks ago he said, I want you to test it because I know you've done a lot of work and you're involved in AI. And so I want your feedback on this tool. And I'd like to make it widely available, because I think it's probably because I've got an idea of where you've been personally. I think this, and the coaches you've had, I spent somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 in coaching in the last, I'd say 13 years, 12, 13 years. And so, just to give people a little bit of a beat on like what I've invested in, and I've spent a lot of time unplugged in 10-day retreats. I do at least a couple of those a year where I totally unplug and go into some self-discovery, guided, and sometimes it's just non-guided meditation. But we're probably very much so coming up to the tools that are gonna, like, where you don't actually have to be the expert. They can kind of guide you, and it's trained on the methods and perspectives of certain people. And so, like, if somebody's like a big fan of Tony Robbins, then they trust him. They trust his perspective. They trust his worldview, and they're adopting his way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing's going to happen with AI. Is like, okay, which bot am I going to interact with? Which software, which brand do I feel has my best interest at heart, or is going to take me where I want to go? And so, one thing so my buddy's developing this coaching tool. I've been developing something that I'm looking forward to releasing, and I'll be releasing it for free, which is basically a canon of sovereignty, and that is finding out all the different layers where someone may give away their sovereignty. And so that is like their own self-knowledge when they externalize authority. So sovereignty is like knowing that I am my, God through me is my authority in every moment. And when we give our authority away to a government, to scientists and write lab coats, this and that, like when you go deep enough, you realize you don't need anyone outside of yourself to tell you what, what you should do next. Like when you really dial in, I don't need someone to tell me how to eat. I don't need someone to tell me how to exercise. I don't need someone to tell me how to relate to my wife when I'm in my own authority. Like when I'm in my own authority, everything's obvious, everything's easy. There's grace and ease. Things are smooth. And when we're not, when we're externalizing our authority in some way, we're looking outside of ourselves for the answers. And so I'm developing a system that will be able to integrate into AI that will identify if you're losing your sovereignty and what layer of sovereignty you're losing. And it will also help people identify if they're externalizing their authority to the tool versus partnering with the tool as a way of getting to an end result. So I'm very careful about how I use AI, and I'm not just outsourcing the authority to it. I'm actually using it as a tool to augment my own intellectual capacity, right? And I'm learning with it, and we're partnered. And so I think that in the future, there's some danger to externalize the authority to the AI overlords. But at the end of the day, nobody can take your authority from you. You can only give it away. And so our practice is to maintain our own authority while we're using the tools, and which can enhance our ability to create the world that we desire. And so I'm creating something, and I'm using AI to create this. It's a canon. It's like a constitution of sorts of this is how we live. And so and I'm also creating inside the canon, there is a whole section on how to challenge the canon. So anyone can challenge it, and you have to meet certain requirements. Most people who want to challenge it will probably be denied the challenge because their approach to challenging it is incorrect. It's not logical. And so I'm creating that. It's for me, it's for my friends, it's for anybody who's interested. And it's more about all about redirecting someone back to their own sovereignty. It's until I publish it, you'd have to like read it to understand exactly how it works. And it's unfinished. So there's about as much as I can say about that. And I had a friend call me up the other day, and he's working with a small family fund. And part of their fund is they've got hundreds of millions of dollars, and they have an AI team that is looking to how do they do the same thing? Like how do we enhance the sovereignty of the individual and communities? And so we had a really awesome jam session a few days ago about how they were approaching it and how I'm approaching it, and really, these are conversations that are alive right now with people who are very good at what they do. They have a deep understanding of personal development, spiritual development, and AI at the same time. And so there are people working on these things. It's probably the most complex thing that we could be working on. But it's something that is occurring. So, people be on the lookout for things that are coming out of that nature. It's me and the people I'm talking to. I am in Austin, Texas is kind of like, people came here seeking more sovereignty in the last 6 years. And everyone's very tech friendly. So it's no mystery to me that like probably the highest concentration of these types of thinkers are here. There are also other places. I know Boulder's got its own group of people. I have some friends there. Asheville's got another group of thinkers there. And the Bay Area has some too. I'd say like a lot of the old guard is there. The newer, fresher have left. So I'm using it in that regard. In my own personal life, for example, I didn't get any blood work done for about 2 years. I was getting blood work every 3 times a year. I was tweaking everything, and I was just like in this optimized type of thing. And I was at this retreat, and I had this big breakthrough around like trying to optimize my blood panels constantly was actually a distraction from me feeling. And so I actually put it down. And so for 2 years, I put it down and I really got into feeling. And I decided to pick up my blood work again. I'm like, okay, I've spent a couple years like without overanalyzing my physiology. And I want to like, I think I could feel better. And so I went and got some blood work done. And everything was really good except for one marker. And so, which my SHBG was pretty high. And so, I'm going to like one of the best doctors in Austin, right? One of the best MDs in Austin for this, highly referenced all this. And I spend, close to $2,000 figuring out what I should do with this blood work. At the end of the conversation, he's like, yeah. And I was like, I don't want to inject any hormones. I want to do this, stay as natural as I can. What are my options? He was like, if I can't prescribe you this prescription, I don't know what else we could do. And I was like, oh, okay. So I leave and I go to Gemini Deep. I use different models, but Gemini Deep Research gave me the best solutions. And I was able to take my knowledge of, I've been studying endocrinology and physiology I've been picking up books on that since I was like 13. So like I have pretty deep knowledge of it. Not claiming to be a doctor or anything, but I was able to have a good conversation using deep research and my panels to go, oh, okay, all right, if I take these two different herbs at this time of the day and I add in some boron and I do this and that, then we'll see what happens. And within a week, I was feeling better. I was feeling like more virile. I was like hitting the gym. I was recovering faster. My libido had gone up, and these are all things I had. One of the supplements I had tossed back at the doctor because I just knew it off the top of my head before I did the research, and he was like, "I don't know, I haven't really seen that work." And I'm actually going to get my blood work done again in the next couple of weeks because it's been a couple months to get like data on it. But I can tell you just from my felt sense, my energy is more even throughout the day. I'm recovering from workouts better. I put on like 5 pounds in like less than a month. And it most of it went to like my glutes and my shoulders. So it's muscle. And so that just tells me how to, there's a deficiency somewhere. There's something was off. When you put on muscle that fast, it's probably because you corrected something, not because you added something. And so I was able to use AI to do something that the doctor just was clueless about. And I think in the two areas where people are, anything that's heavily regulated is where you're not going to find the experts in that field utilizing AI, because there's a lot of fear around. There's liability that they're up against if a doc uses AI and then misprescribes or gets it wrong, then they're held liable, and so there's some nervousness around it. So if you're dealing with anything that is an industry that's heavily regulated, then you're kind of on your own to use AI for yourself. And also take that with a grain of salt, like double check everything. Like, for my blood work, it's like, okay, what are the potential downfalls of this type of supplement, what are the other repercussions that may not be listed here? And also I used it to find, so one of the supplements I'm using is Tonkat Ali, which is an herb. And there's different ways you can distill it down and this and that. And so I was able to use AI to find the exact type of distillation process that's going to give me the highest percentage of this part of the plant that's going to give me what I want. And so whereas I would have previously gone and just bought whatever, I would have gone to Thorn Labs or something like that and just got whatever they had. I was like, no, I got like 5 different, maybe 4 different companies that have different supplements, and I could have gotten them all in one place. But instead I piecemealed it together, and I got a really high quality supplement stack I feel good about. And so that's a way I've used it for my health. You know, I think about like physical health is like usually like the first stage of personal development for people. And it's like, okay, I got my physical health in order. Now, oh, what about my mental health? What about my emotional health, spiritual health?
Yeah, dude, the SHBG thing. I've always been super high on that. Like my total testosterone has always, and I know this is kind of a side tangent from this conversation, but my total testosterone has always been fine, like more than
Same.
fine.
Same.
But
Yeah, I've
that,
always had high testosterone, but low free.
yes, because of the SHBG, and
Yeah.
it's a very common, like it's a pattern in athletes. It's a pattern, and like I'm actually curious about this for you.
What one thing I found was like high protein diets usually contribute to higher
Oh,
SHBG. So that makes sense why athletes are experiencing it because we're eating so much protein to offset the amount of training that we're doing.
yeah,
It's necessary to get that protein to optimize, but then there's an SHBG issue that if you're genetically predispositioned towards it, you'll start veering in that direction.
yeah. Yeah, and my dad's is high. I was super. They gave me testosterone shots at like 13 years old because I was, or 14 or 15. My dad, his dad, like all same pattern. And the boron is always one that's cited. I had also seen some research that it does help, and then it kind of levels off. But the Tonkat and I know this one's debatable, but that Fedosia. I'm sure you came across that one.
Yeah, I have taken that before. I did like it. Yeah, there's some research to show that can have like it's not a there can be some like toxicity
Yeah.
that's produced because of that. So if you're gonna do it, short period of time, maybe 2 months at the most, and then cycle off. Um, and my wife and I are working on fertility right now. So anything that could potentially create any type of toxicity, I'm staying away from.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, there's some. Yeah, I mean, I'm taking like 8 to 10 milligrams of boron a day, so much higher than what most people are taking.
Yeah.
Because that's what basically the research shows. If you're taking less than 6, which if a doctor does tell you to take boron, they're usually going to tell you to take like 2 to 6 milligrams.
Yeah.
And the research is showing 8 to 10.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the first time I introduced higher dose boron, Tonkat, and like that week, dude, because it was the first time I think I got that. And I think it might have been transitory, but I think you also have like the mood is so much because of the polarity. Dude, I was walking around floating. Like I was like, what, like the confidence I was feeling and like, yeah. But that actually like something I had written down before we chatted was that like a couple years ago, when I really started slowing down from this optimizing mentality, like you were talking about, like you were using the blood work to distract you from feeling. When we were working together, I was like kind of struggling with the balance of like, dude, what do I like? I was so identified with the better, more optimize. Like, I mean, how do you balance that?
I have a coach who checks my ass.
Fair.
I have a coach that checks me, like, because I have the same, I've been interested in like optimization since I was 13. I was picking up these weird herbal remedy books and,
Yeah, dude.
as soon as I was able to be in the gym lifting weights, I was going to GNC and buying crazy protein powders and all this shit. So, just one thing I realized is like science is so incomplete. We know so little, and the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know. And there's like I was talking to my buddy Nathan Riley, who he's he does a lot of stuff around natural birth. He's an OBGYN. He's also a Czech practitioner. Do you know who he is?
Dude, I got his course before Izzy was born and went through that.
Nice,
his like
nice.
home, I mean, we didn't do a home birth, but like just like it was loaded with good stuff on the entire process.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. So he's a personal friend of mine, and we were hanging out a couple weeks ago, and my wife and I were talking about pregnancy, and he was talking about his daughter, and I won't go too much into it, but something was going on with his daughter, and this guy, like, no, he's a Czech practitioner, he's an MD, he's incredibly knowledgeable when it comes to health, and he ended up getting in contact with this homeopath who is like 85, been in the game a long time, and most what he told me is like homeopathy is largely he used to think it was bullshit because it is largely not done well, right? There's a lot of misunderstandings around homeopathy, and a lot of people who practice it may not be practicing it in the way it was initially intended.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked to this guy who's 85, 86, and he did a podcast with him too, which I just started. I haven't finished it. The homeopathy guy goes, well, and he goes, I've done everything. I've given her this, 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 and this, and this, and this, and this, and I've exhausted my knowledge. And he goes, and the homeopath is like, hey, well, you're about 20% there. And it was such a, when he said that, I was like, man, I would have thought it was the opposite. You're 80% there. The last 20%, we can get there with these other tools. He goes, no, you're about 20% there. So just a sign of we assume that science and the medical system is handling the majority of what's possible when it's really handling a very small amount. He followed what this homeopath gave him, and it cleared up exactly what was going on. Like no problem had ever existed before, and something he had been trying to hack the whole time. And so my wife and I we're actually going to go talk to the same homeopath and see about just what are we missing? I've been in this optimization thing. I went to school for human performance. I studied physiology. I studied kinesiology. I studied all the science that would be necessary to optimize, this meat suit, and it's still not. I know that I'm not, anywhere close to where I could be. I mean, I see guys that are 20 years older than me that are just crushing it, and I think for my age I'm doing pretty damn well, but I there's still things for me to learn, and so yeah, I think that the going back to the truth conversation is, I think that there's been in the world of science, there's been a lock on what can be studied and what can't be studied, and there's a scarcity of capital resources for conducting research. There's human resources that are limited. We only have so many scientists that are willing to study certain things or desire to study certain things. And that science is about to explode. The base of all science is physics, and we have AI working on solving physics right now. And so what are the implications of that for biology? And so things like homeopathy, which have been considered a quack profession, well, now, and one of the reasons homeopathy, from what I'm starting to understand about it, is it would be incredibly difficult to study with the way that the scientific method is designed, because it's not a symptom cause type of thing. It's a much more holistic thing. You'd have to find a set of people that all have the same exact problem with the same background, the same raised in the same place by the same type of parent. You know what I mean? There's it goes fucking deep. And so this traditional way of looking and studying things just doesn't work for the things that could possibly be the most effective way to treat somebody. And so one of the issues is just being able to take all these variables into consideration and being able to collect all the data and then make sense of it. And with where technology is moving, is everyone's going to be able to collect a lot of data on themselves, and then the AI is going to be able to give us some suggestions. I think we're going to hear a lot of suggestions that are being made by some people who are traditionally just like dismissed by the scientific community and go, oh, this was actually a really good idea. And this is the solution to this. And so I think that science is about to explode in a way that is unfathomable. I think that biotech advancements, I I have I've participated in a couple of biotech companies. I see the technology that's coming. I'm talking to people who are in biotech right now. That I mean the stuff that's available is just incredible. Just yeah, I wish I could say more about it, but a lot of these things are at stages where I'm not really at liberty to do so. But the yeah, I mean, I think the best thing we can be doing right now is like investing in our health, investing in our relationships. I'm sure you're following Brian Johnson a bit, and the most measured man on the planet.
Yeah.
Spending millions of dollars on like measuring every single thing and trying to live forever and be immortal. And he there's a lot of people that have he's a controversial character for sure. But I think overall he's doing some good work. I think that I think that one of the things he has is like he's like, don't die yet. It's kind of his message, right? It's like,
Yeah.
if you can live the next like 30 years, you're going to be able to live a lot longer. I've been telling people for a while, like, yeah, I'm going to make it to 170. And they're like, okay, that's a joke. And I'm like, not really a joke. I think that with what we're seeing with biotech, all I got to do is not get hit by a car. All I got to do is not get liver cancer. All I got to do is like maintain this body with maintain it as well as I can, because as these technologies come on board, the healthier I am, the less difficult. It's not a free pass to do whatever you want because you'll be taken care of. It's no, if I can maintain my meat suit as well as I possibly can, that means that as these interventions come along, I'll need very small amounts. I'll need very small interventions, and there won't be things to reverse. There'll just be things to slow down, because we're going to be able to slow things down before we can reverse them. And so, and we have no idea what's going to happen. So, taking care of things like my vision, making sure, I spend a lot of time on screens because I'm doing a lot of AI stuff, but getting outside, making sure I'm getting some sunlight in my eyes, looking at things that are far away.
Yeah.
I think we're not that far off from being able to just do an eyedropper in the eye, and it's going to like fix most of our eye problems. I think that I'm going to be able to rub something on my scalp and I'll get my hair back. There's going to be some advancements that are pretty fucking cool. And there's some things that are already here that just aren't widely distributed yet. There's take care of your health, take care of your relationships. You talk to anyone who's older, most people don't wish they made more money. They wish they spent more time with their kids and their grandkids and all that. It's like, as we come into this state of abundance, like, and things may become rocky here in the short term, solidify your relationships, like if things get rocky in the world and my wife and I are solid, then we're fucking solid. If we're not solid and things get rocky, it's just going to make things even harder. So, with the unpredictability of things coming, what are the things that I can control? What are the things I can impact? Well, I can impact my own emotional state. I can work on, my own spiritual practice. I can, improve my relationships and like hanging out. I got a group of guys that I hang out with, and we were talking last night, and this one dude is just like, he's such a good role model spiritually, and he's like, yeah, like all this external success, he does well. All this external success, like, is because I found the kingdom of God within first. You know, that when I do that, when I really tap into like heaven on earth that's within me, then everything in the external world just really works out in my favor. And, and that's been his commitment. And, it's so motivating of like, yeah, I can get wrapped up in like, oh my God, AI is coming. Like I'm such a, I love technology and I love like, oh, there's all these opportunities, but also like watching myself and not getting caught up in like, I see this opportunity. I can make a lot of money in this right now. I'm going to like burn that candle at both ends to get there. And it's like, okay. And is that actually the most high leverage thing I could be doing? Or could it be just sitting with myself and finding peace within myself and then, leveraging the tools as it makes sense instead of, feeling like I got to solve every problem immediately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved how you described sovereignty earlier. It's like, I mean, it's that practice, right? Like it's tapping into the infinite information and knowledge and wisdom you already have within you instead of outsourcing from other people. But man, you said a lot there. That was all great. I mean, the Brian Johnson thing. I just love anybody who's obsessing over something. Like
Yeah.
it's so fun for everybody, like regardless of what you think, it's so fun to watch. And I love how he's, obviously psychedelics haven't had I mean, it's picking up, but it's just cool to watch the exploration and the documentation and all of it.
Yeah. It's, I've met a lot of geniuses in my work. It's like one of the things I pride myself on is like, I'm able to spot genius.
Yeah.
And the geniuses are always fucking weird, man. They're like they're controversial.
Yeah.
They say things that bother people. They don't always make sense. It's so counter at times, and I do. I pride myself on being able to look past the weirdness and really look for the gold in what they have going on. And I think Brian Johnson's a really good example of that. It's like, that dude's fucking weird, man.
Yeah.
and when I first saw him come online and talking about don't die, I was like, dude, this guy is he's got a screw loose, there's something wrong with him. And then like as he's going down this journey, I'm like, okay, not the way I would do it, but yeah. I mean, that's the whole point.
Right.
Like, I'm going to do it the way I do it, and he's going to do it the way he does it. And, my work around that is don't judge, just pay attention and listen and see what kind of value that I can glean from what he's sharing.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, man. Yeah, the most fascinating to me is last year I went down deep in a quantum biology rabbit hole and just how light and water and magnetism impact our physiology. And I think there's so much there that's going to be coming out that is so cool to me. And I mean, there's the Body Electric. It's a book. This guy, have you heard of that?
Yeah, I have. I haven't read it, but I've
Robert Becker. Yeah. And basically you put a certain voltage on like salamanders and shit, and they regrow their limbs with nothing else but the right voltage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the way cells can de-differentiate and then rebuild, it is so fucking cool. And it really, that's the stuff that when I contemplate that, I mean, there's a spiritual component there too, and it's just cool stuff.
I mean, that takes us back to the science being limited conversation, and that the science that is all right. Like, if anything, if there's a paper that's more than 20 years old, people don't want to pay attention to it. They want to see something that was published recently. But the last 100 years, the majority of the research that's been conducted is on chemicals. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's got to be a patentable chemical in order for us to fund the research, in order for this to make it to market. And so the entire population has been brainwashed into thinking that chemicals are all, drugs are always the solution. And anything that's not a chemical, if it's magnetism or if it's electrical currents or it's light or whatever it is kind of seen as like a, it's some quack science. And, and they're like, well, there hasn't been 1,000 studies done. It's not peer reviewed, and it's not this, and this doesn't meet all these requirements. I'm like, that whole scientific method, that the modern scientific method that we're operating from, is built for pharmaceutical companies. Of course, it's gonna feel weird if we're getting outside of the pharmaceutical company paradigm. There's gonna be less research. It's not gonna be published in the science journal, because all the funding is being run through the pharmaceutical companies. And I don't believe in any boogeymen, but that's just how the system evolved.
Right.
Like that's the marriage between corporations and government have made it difficult to do anything that's not extremely profitable. That's why peptides are so gray at this point. It's like they're chemicals, and there's a lot of research on it. The Russians have been studying it for fucking 50, 60 years. But we don't trust the Russian research, even though they're the ones that basically brought all this to light. And by the way, they were studying light in the 50s and 60s too. Mm-hmm. And we didn't talk about red light therapy in the US, and it wasn't accepted until like the last decade.
Yeah.
And so, I think it's good for people to be aware of how limited the current literature is. And I think that when we come up through school, there's this idea that we have an explanation for everything. Okay. Like when you go to school and they say we have an explanation on how we got here, there's the Big Bang and there's evolution, right? And then, so the mind then goes, well, if we have an answer for, how we got here, we probably have an answer for everything else too. And it's like, no, man, even that's bullshit too. Like, we don't know how we got here. That's like every year there's a new development. We're like, well, the universe is actually like the galaxy is like way older than we thought it was. The universe is older. We just discovered that there's DNA on this meteor. By the way, this happened this last week. There's like the same type of DNA we find on the planet Earth is available on this meteor that's like passing through. It's like went from there's no life on Mars to there's ice on Mars to there's actually water on Mars to the director of NASA is now saying there's a 90%, he's 90% confident that there's life on Mars. When it was supposed, 10 years ago, if you said there was life on Mars, you were a conspiracy theorist or you were like a weirdo or whatever it was. And it's like, dude, we have no idea.
Yeah.
We have no idea how we got here. Most of the medical research is on pharmaceuticals. Like, we're not studying electrical, or we're not studying like magnetism. We're not studying light. It's all very new. So, yeah, it's fucking wild.
Yeah, well, and it's just so funny, right? It's like, what is the context within where we're looking, right? And like, if you look at that from a spiritual lens or a consciousness lens of like, who am I? It's like, well, if we sit in that question, you may zoom out from where you're looking. And so, like, if you look at a biochemical approach to medicine and disease, you're looking at something from a lens of how do we manipulate, and you have to zoom out from the picture entirely to even realize there's something you might not even be measuring that's affecting the whole system you're looking at. And then how did we get here of a question is just also, what is here? Like what it reminds me of is hey, you had a 1 in a million % chance of existing. And it's like, from what vantage point? You know, like you mean like when my parents were dating? Like that's a very different answer than I don't know. It's just so funny. Like, but I think at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that being willing to sit in the not knowing is so important.
Well, the we call something magic or we call something a miracle when we don't understand how it happened, right?
Yeah.
And the more in touch we get with ourselves, the less magical things become. Like I just remember like when I started going really deep on certain things, I was starting to experience miracles, and I'm like, dude, whoa, what a miracle! Like my how I view the world has shifted so much. Like I'm seeing different colors. Like that's a miracle. I don't understand it. And then as I get deeper and deeper and deeper, I'm like, oh, it's that actually just makes sense now. Like it's obvious to me. I can I'm oh yeah, I observe what happened and I understand how this works and okay. And so uh, I think that almost 99.999% of reality is a total miracle because we don't understand it. And it's okay. It's okay to just say, hey, it's a miracle. Like this this like seek this need this need to understand. I'm never going to understand it all. So let go of the need to understand. And then when I let go of the need to understand why or how, then I actually I naturally just start to understand why and how because I'm no longer attached to that needing to me needing to have that in order to reduce my suffering. It's like, no, I'm just going to let go and let go of whatever it is that's causing the suffering. And oh, now things become a little more obvious. The miracles become a little more obvious. It doesn't seem as magical, and there's still plenty of magic and there's plenty of mystery. I'm I'm so like stoked on just being present with the mystery of all that is. And I get gifted with knowledge and wisdom because of that, and that's totally okay. But I'm okay, passing from this plane and not having gotten all the answers. That's okay.
Yeah. Man, I love that. It's, yeah, the way I describe my life, well, still, but I've made some progress here is I was spending so much time trying to find answers to problems that I created, like answering questions, it's like, it's pretty hard to fucking do that. Like, solve a
Yeah.
problem that doesn't exist to begin with. Like,
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, just like the this morning, I told you before we started recording. I have a property, and somebody screwed something up, and there was some flooding on the property, and okay, it might cost some money or some dealing with insurance company or whatever it is, and it's like feeling my wife and I talking about what's going on, and having to like there's a sense of urgency of getting on the phone and talking to the utility company to get them shut something off and getting a handyman over there to like look at the damage and all this and I think most people would look at that and go, that's a real fucking problem. Like you should feel stressed about that. That's and I had the experience of like I stress or fear about something that I didn't understand or know it or how this is going to go. And but even in that, I'm like I caught myself in the middle of it and I go, yeah, like this is just what's happening. This panic or this fear that's arising is totally inside of my that's for me. I'm creating this emotional experience that is making this a tough moment, or I'm having a hard time. It's like it's not. It doesn't have to be. It could just be something that's happening, and I just go through the steps of correcting whatever it is, and that's it. Do I want to spend $5,000 to like fix this problem? I don't. I might need to. That's okay. It's just I just got to move some things around. I've got to, sell something else or help, add value in some way so I can have the cash flow to make that happen. Whatever it is, it's all going to work out. It always does.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, and being okay with the fact that you don't want to. spend the $5,000. Like,
No, I want this house to be pristine and perfect, and I want to be able to sell it and put a bunch of cash in my pocket. That's cool. But also, like, it's just going to do what it's going to do. And I'm going to do my best to optimize my situation, but also, like, if it doesn't meet whatever the dream scenario is, that's okay. Yeah.
all right, man. Here's been my question that I've been asking all my guests that I really like, and it is: you get to allocate, you get to talk to everyone on planet Earth, and they will follow your instructions for 10 minutes on one day, one time. That's what, and you get to take that wherever you want. And real quick, so you don't. I had Chase Tolleson on the podcast yesterday, and he said he sat for a little bit, and he goes, "Smoke 5-MeO DMT and just journal." I was like, "Damn, that's good."
That's good. That's good. I would take everyone through like a little breath of meditation, a little visualization with their breath, and just I call it smooth breathing, and that's closing your eyes and getting in your breath and in your body, and really noticing where your breath wants to go in or out quickly. So there's going to be an area where, as you're inhaling or exhaling, where you want to speed through that part of the breath. And so noticing where your breath wants to go fast and where it wants to go slow. So like if I were doing a bicep curl, there's a part of the bicep curl where like I feel weak in that part. And so I might try to go fast through that one area, right? And so, any type of physical exercise where muscle is involved, there's a section of the range of motion that will be weak. And the way we strengthen it is by going slow through that anyway. And so with our breath is really noticing where we want to go fast and slow. And so it's a diagnostic tool of identifying where in our diaphragm, where there's a lot of stored emotion, where we're wanting to speed past a feeling. And so just like an exercise where if we have some type of injury, we injure an ankle, then we start having a compensation in how we move. Or my ankle's injured, so now my knee starts to I change how my knee flexes to take the weight off of my ankle, and then now that creates a motor pattern that I have to retrain. This is why physical therapy exists. And so the same thing happens with breathing. Is we may have a feeling we want to avoid, and we notice like when we get into some type of a fear response, we tend to hold our breath. I mean, we see in exercise, people are learning a new movement, and you catch someone holding their breath as they're trying to learn something new. Or you're checking your email and an email comes and you've been, afraid that you're going to get this notification, or a big bill comes in, and then you realize you're holding your breath. And that's our attempt at controlling things. And by freezing our breath, and then if we freeze our breath too frequently, we tend to freeze our breath based on the feeling that we're having. And I want to avoid this feeling, so I'm going to hold my breath, and then I'm going to speed past. I'm going to hold it where I feel strong, and I'm going to speed past it. And so we end up building this motor pattern in our breathing mechanics where we're speeding through areas. And so if we use the diagnostic tool of identifying where we're wanting to move quickly, or there's a stutter or a hesitation in our breath, the solution is also the diagnostic tool, which is slow your breathing and see how smooth and even you can make your breath. And what you'll find is you'll naturally start breathing really slow, and you'll start breathing really smooth, and your entire nervous system will just totally relax. And so if you do this practice 10 minutes a day and you're smoothing out your breath, what you'll notice is you'll have a smoother breath throughout the entire day. And now things like your cortisol will go down, your hormones will balance out. Like there's going to be a lot of holistic things that occur from this. And so, and there may be some type of emotional response. I've been avoiding this feeling. Now I'm in touch with this feeling because I'm moving through the breath really slowly. And now I'm having a realization about my life in some way. And, when people do breath work a lot of times, or a big psychedelic journey, They may zoom right past that thing still. They may, or trying to integrate something that's so far out there. It's like, no, just integrate this breath practice right here, and just get a little bit better at it from day to day. And if your breathing mechanics improve 10% over the next year, you'll expend 10% less energy. You'll have more energy throughout the day. You'll sleep better. The benefits are outrageous. And it's such a simple thing, and people just assume that I don't need to focus on my breath because I'm already breathing. I can do it unconsciously. And so, it's why runners have the highest incidence of injuries, because everyone just thinks they know how to run and they just put one foot in front of the other. And your running mechanics are screwed up because you've been wearing these shoes. Your breathing mechanics are screwed up because you've been avoiding this feeling since you were 5 years old or whatever it is. And if I can smooth that out, there's some really beautiful things that can come from that, like psychologically, emotionally, spiritually. And it's just sitting with your breath for 10 minutes.
Amazing. Yeah, and you have it with you anywhere you go.
You
Can't
can
sleep
tap
at
into
night.
it any moment. I could be driving down the road.
Yeah.
An example of technology, right? The Tesla drives itself. I can put more attention on my breath. There you go. I do that while the car's driving.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's awesome. Well, cool. Anything you're working on? Where are you going to be sharing will that be public, the sovereignty coach that you were talking about, or anything you want to share?
Yeah, I'm working on, it's a side project right now because I have a couple different businesses and I'm doing some pretty heavy builds on, but in my spare time, quote unquote, I am working on a blog called it's playground.bledsoe.life. It is published, but the links are broken. I got one post up right now. I mean, I don't know when this podcast is going up, but it may be more functional by the time it gets there. But people can sign up for the newsletter. I'm going to be talking about when you get on the newsletter, it'll be like, are you interested in more like AI tactical business stuff? Click this button. If you're wanting more of the deeper wisdom, click this button. If you want both, click both buttons, and you'll basically be added to like 2 different lists. And if you want to get everything, you can get everything. So we talked a little bit mostly about what would be featured in the wisdom piece of the blog today, but there's probably some tactical stuff I dropped in.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where I'm putting my stuff. And I call it the playground because, dude, I don't want to take it too, it's consciousness is fun. It's, playing in consciousness, playing in this world, it's fun. It's a playground. It's my playground. If you want to come on my playground and check it out, come on over.
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, that's I built a new funnel last month that I truly I was like, I wasn't even thinking about what it was for, and just, what do you know? It's the most successful funnel and business move I've ever made. And I was truly just making it for fun. And so it's oh, it's a great place to be. Well, thank you, Mike. This was awesome. I'll put those links below. It'll probably be, I bet you'll be. I mean, I know your execution is fast as hell now with all these tools. So
it is faster.
Yeah.
But it also is like a side project.
Okay.
So
either way,
how long before this goes up?
Probably like a month.
It'll be done.
Yeah, I figured. We'll have a ton of updates by then.
That and a few other things will be complete.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And by that time, my playground.bledsoe.life is the blog. But if you go to bledsoe.life, there'll be links to
everything.
You'll be able to see all the projects I'm working on. And, most of them, some of them won't apply to anybody. They're like, oh, there's a niche market that he's doing some work on over here. But there might be some stuff people are interested in.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, man.
Yeah.
See everybody later.